Thank you for tuning in to Roll Call. The movie you selected is Where the Day Takes You, starring Will Smith.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Roll Call Season 2, Episode 1, the show where two childless millennials are going to gush over movies and follow an actor's journey from their early years throughout their blockbuster hits.
Because, let's face it, we're all just chasing that power trip that you felt when you got to pick out a movie for the weekend.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm talking looking at the lineup of what was released versus your inner debate of renting the same movie again for like the 5th time in a row, and then running the risk of like putting a little chupa lollipop up there to see if your parents are gonna notice, and then they let it slide and it's like, yeah, baby.
What's up, everybody? We're back. And if you don't know, if this is your introduction to us because our change of subject matter has brought you to this lovely podcast, my name is Bria, and I'm not ever sure where the day will take me. So just like this movie, I didn't know where it was going to take me either. So,
oh my God, I was going to say the same thing. And hey everyone, I am Simone, and I had no idea what to expect when going into this movie, but I wasn't expecting what happened in the movie. So I am really excited to talk about it today.
So, if you don't know, in today's episode, we're chatting about Will Smith in his movie, oh God, wow, so many words, in his film debut, Where the Day Takes You. So, let's take a trip back to 1992. Oh my God, it's so weird to go back to the 90s and, try to think about the stuff we didn't talk about or whatever, find new stuff that we think is interesting. So if we repeat throughout this season, forgive us. But anyways, a weird thing happened, kind of like the Garfield phones. But a shipping container filled with 28,000 rubber duckies was lost at sea. To this day, they're still being found around the world.
Yes, I remember that. And was it done accidentally, or was it a study like of how like ocean current waves?
Ooh, I don't know. I'm thinking it was accidental, but that would be an interesting study as well.
But imagine like if you were a predator and you saw that and then you like took a chomp out of it and you're like, oh fuck, garbage? Really? Damn it.
That reminds me too of in Harry Potter, Mr. Weasley asks Harry, he's like, what are rubber duckies for? What?
Tell me exactly what the function and purpose is of a rubber duck.
So, in sports news, as 90s kids around the world know, when it's time to slam, Michael Jordan is the man. So, Michael Jordan obviously is huge. 1992, the Dream Team is huge. They're going to Barcelona. This is probably the best Olympic basketball team ever assembled in history. And, of course, the Bulls win the championship. But this little nugget caught my eye because in 1992, McDonald's sold a burger called the McJordan that included all of Michael Jordan's favorite toppings, one of which was barbecue sauce. And in 2012, an unopened gallon of 20-year-old McJordan barbecue sauce sold on eBay for $9,995.
Oh, grody.
Ooh, I have a would you rather for you, Simone. How much money would it take for you to take a sip of 20-year-old McJordan barbecue sauce? Well, so actually, it's older than that now. It's actually 32. It's 30 years old in 2022.
It was 30 years
2012.
Old.
Fine wine.
What can you give me the like measurements of what a mouthful is? Like, are we talking a tablespoon,
Like,
like?
you know those little paper cups from the Alhambra?
Yeah.
Or no, just like a little paper cup for the ketchup, maybe. So of the barbecue sauce. And let's say $10 million, would you do it?
Oh, yeah. I'd probably do it for like, I mean, I would do it for way less than that.
What's your bottom?
If it's just a little paper cup filled, then probably, I don't know, like $500, $1,000.
What?
I don't know. I mean,
Like millennials at this point is like, as long as you pay off my student loans, I'll do anything.
yeah. But then if someone was also offering me 10 million, I would say like, sure. Like, I'm not going to deny that either.
Oh, I would him and haw a little bit, make them sweat it out a little bit and be like, oh, 10, see if you can get the number up. But deep inside, I'd be like, fuck yeah, hurry up, pour the McJordan sauce. Would you bathe in McJordan sauce for money?
Yeah, if I didn't have to like ingest it, but I would if I could wear.
What if it smells terrible?
I'm guessing. I mean, I'm thinking about how like those kinds of things preserve over the years. Like, is it safe to consume?
It's chunky.
No.
There are things to think about. Just saying.
I guess, yeah. Okay.
So, also in 1992, Nickelodeon had buried their infamous time capsule, which at this point in time, we were closer to opening than when they buried it.
Yes. What was the year they said they were going to open it?
2042.
So it's going to be 50.
Oh, shit. I'm going to be 50.
Yeah.
Damn, son, why we gotta wait to have a midlife crisis for you to open our childhood time capsule? Okay.
Oh my God.
In groundbreaking television, MTV introduced The Real World. And TV has not been the same since. Which is awesome because they're doing like reunion seasons on Paramount Plus, which I haven't watched because I can't fork over more money for another streaming service. But I have seen some interesting stuff. So I had to put this in here, even though I don't really want to talk about this. But Woody Allen left his longtime partner, Mia Farrow, after she discovered his secret affair with their adopted daughter, Suni, who was only 21. And I only put that in there because of Simone's Woody Allen impression.
Yes, Woody Allen pertains to many of the inside jokes that we have come to love and also / like love hate on this show.
Yeah.
That stupid motherfucker.
In other cheating scandals, Princess Diana and Prince Charles separated and later divorced shortly after his longtime affair with Camilla Parker Bowles. And then in another cheating scandal, the 90s, so many cheaters.
Damn.
Hence the show cheaters, probably. But you have the infamous case of the Long Island Lolita, Amy Fisher, who shot the wife of her lover, Joey Buttafuoco. And she shot Mary Jo Buttafuoco in the face, who survived and then later divorced Joey. And it was just everywhere. I've seen like this on I Love the 90s. I've seen this like, oh my God, I think Alyssa Milano was in that weird bad like TV movie about this.
6 Degrees.
It was just everywhere. So it was like one of those cases that, public opinion and tabloids, news cycle, all that stuff, just everywhere. And then I thought it would be interesting, since we're doing Will, to do like a little, I know sometimes we do music, but to like focus a little bit on hip hop, since he is The Fresh Prince. He is a prince and a very important part of hip hop. First act to win a Grammy for hip hop. So, according to hiphopgoldenage.com, this is not like a true like Billboard numbers or selling, but this is their opinion. So they have a list of top 40 hip hop songs of 1992. So I'm gonna read the top five. Pete Rock and CL Smooth, Troy, They Reminisce Over You. Ugh, love that song. The Far Side, Pass Me By. It's how I feel all throughout this panoramic. So just times just slipping away. Ice Cube, It Was a Good Day,
It was a good day. Today was a good day.
which I have come to enjoy when I have a good day because they seem few and far between. Number four, Dr. Dre, Nothing But a G Thing, featuring the young
Oh.
Snoop Doggy Dogg. Um,
Mm.
and then number five, Eric B. and Rakim, Know the Ledge, taken from the soundtrack for the movie Juice, which starred none other than Tupac Shakur. And then we're going to go over to what the Hot 100 was the week of September 12th, 1992, because this movie came out September 11th. So that's great timing. But number one, End of the Road, Boys to Men. I mean, everybody. That's
Great
how I
song.
felt for our J-Lo season.
And you know that song, like, I wish I could be a fly on the wall in like a prom of that year because you know that was like probably the last song, the last couple slow
Graduation song.
graduation. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. Everywhere. Except for weddings, I hope. Even though people pick terrible songs for wedding songs a lot of the time. But number two, Baby 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 by TLC. I love TLC.
Yes.
This music video, everything. I mean, TLC, icons, legends. None other than Mr. Bobby Brown at number three with Humpin' Around. I love that song.
I love that title. It's great. Just humping around.
Number four, we have November Rain from Guns N' Roses, which apparently is down from the previous week. It was number three. I don't know that song, but you know, Guns N' Roses was a huge band, so I'm sure it's like some amazing, powerful rock song ballad or something. Stay by Shakespeare's Sister is number five, which, you know, again, sappy, emotional songs, except for Humping Around and Baby Baby Baby. And then box office of September 1992. Lots of movies I never heard of. Well, like 3 out of 5 of them I had never heard of. So I watched the trailers. Very interesting films. So number one, we have a movie called Sneakers, starring Robert Redford, Sidney Poitier,
Oh,
R.I.P.,
yeah.
Dan Aykroyd, River Phoenix, also R.I.P. It's like this weird spy, not spy, government conspiracy tracking information movie. I don't know. Lots of computer stuff in it. Early 90s computer stuff. Very, very interesting. I'm inclined to kind of take a peek at it from the trailer. I was like, interesting. Interesting that was number one. Number two, Honeymoon in Vegas with Nicolas Cage, Sarah Jessica Parker, and James Caan, which I had never seen this movie. And I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. And to see the trailer, I was like, whoa. And I believe Nicolas Cage and SJP dated around this time.
I think you're correct. Yes.
Probably because of this movie. Kind of inclined to watch it. I love Sarah Jessica Parker, but interesting that it's like number two. Number three, Unforgiven, which I was like, what the fuck? It's a Western starring none other than Clint Eastwood, Morgan Freeman, Gene Hackman, and a few other notable names. And apparently Clint Eastwood won an Oscar for this movie.
No shit.
Yes, this movie is an Oscar winner, which just goes to show you, if you haven't listened to our Hustlers Oscar episode, that the Oscars sometimes are not relevant long term. Because besides people who love Westerns, who knew? Who knew Unforgiven was Oscar worthy?
Yeah.
And then number 4, we have something that is, pop culture relevant, became a phrase in the zeitgeist, but did not probably win an Oscar. Single white female, which, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Lifetime is doing a single black female movie that's coming out soon. So,
Oh,
see, still relevant. Not an Oscar winner, though. And also, number 5, Sister Act, more relevant than any of these other movies to me.
yes.
So, Sister Mary Clarence, Get Your Life. Number 5, though, not a huge movie. I mean, it's huge, but movies we haven't really heard of, haven't had rewatchable value, don't show reruns on TV often. We're
Mhm.
above this movie at the box office, so interessante. And
Yeah, very interesting.
on that, on the flip side, we gonna switch over. I'm trying to come up with new stuff, new season, new stuff. I made up something yesterday. I forgot what it was, but all right, we're gonna skip and a flip and a dip on over to the House of Lil Raj. And Simone, what did it cost? What did it make? What did Lil Raj think? Also, if you don't know, Lil Raj is Mr. Roger Ebert, and we
Yes.
have come to adore his opinion on movies, and therefore affectionately have dubbed him Lil Raj. So going
Yes.
forward, we will be calling him Lil Raj. But anyways, um,
It's good. It's like it's funny because like for us when we record, it's like easy just to like pick back up where we left off, but I think it's good that we're like establishing it's kind of like when you reread like Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets and the Prisoner of Azkaban, like there's a little bit of like reintroduction of some of the
yeah.
characters and some of the plot. And if you want to train hop with us on these Los Angeles Hollywood treks, you gotta keep up, man. So and that's a direct reference to that movie. But I guess you're right. Like with this, I assume that most of the people listen, like most movie podcasts, I'm guilty of doing this too, of just listening to episodes of movies that I have watched or like recently watched.
Yeah.
But regardless, okay. Where the Day Takes You is a New Line Cinema film, also co-produced by Cinetel Films. This movie was initially released in January of 1992 at a like Seattle little mini indie film fest, but officially released in September of 1992, more specifically September 11th. It was directed by Marc Rocco, and the majority of this film was all filmed in Los Angeles. And so you get to see kind of this like early 90s Los Angeles like street scene. So the budget of this movie was $3 million, which in 1992 I feel like is a pretty decently sized budget, especially for kind of this indie style mockumentary, documentary, maybe not mockumentary, but like it has hints and elements of like almost like it's a little bit of a documentary. Opening weekend only grossed about $190,000. And by the end of its box office run, hit $390,000. Yeah, so didn't do quite well budget-wise. But when looking at some of the reviews and reviews of the time, but then reviews that people made many, many years later, a lot of people were surprised with how low it did, considering the rating that Lil Raj gives this movie.
Oh my God, I'm gonna be shocked.
Would you like to take a guess?
Well, it's higher than I'm gonna rate this movie, I'm guessing. So anything above a 1 is gonna be like, wow. I'm gonna guess if it's astonishing, he might have given it like 3.5.
You are very close. So, we had kind of had this revelation last season where this whole time I thought Lil Raj's ratings were done out of 5 stars, just because that's like the majority of things, it's like out of 5. But his highest rating is actually a 4. And he gives this 3 stars.
Wow. And by the
Um,
way, we didn't get into this for J-Lo, but her average for Lil Raj was like 3.5. So 3 is like, it's kind of up there.
3 is up there, and it doesn't surprise me that her average was 3.5. And he always would like go back and make little notations like, I like Lopez. Like, like he would like always kind of throw her a little bone. Like, it was a shitty movie, but Lopez was great.
So I'm curious how this journey with Will Smith, what his average will wind up being, and
I know.
to see continuously Ebert's opinion about him.
Yes, absolutely. So some of the big highlights of his review says that the movie, which was shot around Hollywood Boulevard, shows a side of of runaway kids we haven't seen before, how they form surrogate families in the streets, seeking reassurance and security that they never felt at home. And at first, Roger kind of talks about how he was led astray. He said he was surprisingly well acted and convincing. And it was a surprise to him because when you look at the cast, which we'll get into next, but we have Dermot Mulroney, Sean Astin, Laura Flynn Boyle, Balthazar Getty, fucking Ricki Lake. He's like, it led me at first when he was walking into the theater, he anticipated this like junior Brat Pack kind of movie that was going to be poorly acted. But he gives a lot of credit to the director, Marc Rocco. He said perhaps Marc Rocco's really great with actors, or maybe these actors just haven't had this kind of strong material to work for or work with before. And he says the screenplay contains a lot of documentary style information when it comes to exposition about the movie, about where the runaways hang out, why they hate the police, and how they survive in a system that seems set up specifically to crush them. It is not a poetic or pseudo-romantic view of runaway life, which some movies kind of can, which I have notes on that we'll talk about later. But on the other hand, it isn't hysterical either. It shows how young people need families and will form their own if they are failed by the ones that they were born into. The story is convincing all the way up until the end. And all of the events that lead up to the movie kind of have this like snowball effect of breaking the law, and then to correct that law, have to break more laws. And the bottom line is kids run away, they band with other kids, and society seems organized to destroy them, whether or not they're asking for it.
Interesting. Little Raj, full of surprises.
I was really surprised as well, because watching this, I was turned off by some of the like dialogue, and it just seemed like a lot of the dialogue the actors were like making up on the spot. And so how he views this as this like poetic, not poet, he says it's not poetic, but like as this raw cut view of runaways living on the streets, but that it's not done in this romantic way or like hysterical way. I now kind of see where he's coming from, but I did not feel that way initially when I first watched this movie.
Yeah, I mean, my general consensus, maybe we should wait. So, on this show, we have established a rating system about how many pumps of butter we are going to put on our popcorn for this movie. So, Simone, how many pumps of butter were you going to give Where the Day Takes You?
I would give this movie 2.5 pumps of butter. And my rating is out of 5.
Okay.
Right? Do you do out of 5?
No. Do out of
Is
4
it a
like Lil Raj. It's,
Okay, all right. So if that's the case, okay, so if we're gonna do out of 4, then I would give it a 2 out of 4 pumps of butter. Now, the cast alone, I would give like 3.5 or 4 pumps. I really loved this cast. I thought it was so classically 90s. I sent you a video last night of me jamming to Melissa Etheridge, who did like 90% of this soundtrack, and it was just like, oh, come to my window. Like I was really feeling that like 90s nostalgia. So for that,
yeah.
I give it 4, but for overall movie wise, I give it a 2.
Yeah. I'm a 2-2. 2-2. And it's really like a mercy too, because I feel like I want to give it a 1, but I feel like kind of like with some other films we've watched that it's like a pity extra pump of subject matter and, trying to do something that is of significance in terms of telling these stories about these kids living on the streets and all that stuff, drug issues. So I give kind of a pity, like honorable, nice try pump for that. But yeah, it's just one of those movies that catches you off guard, and then
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of like, wow, this is really of its time.
Mm-hmm. It is really of its time.
So, skipping a flip, we are going to go on to the summary of the movie. In case you don't want to watch Where the Day Takes You and save yourself and your eyeballs some, and your ears from Melissa Etheridge.
All right, so it's pretty basic. This movie is based off of a group of teenage runaways that are just trying to survive the streets of Los Angeles. All of them deal with individual issues such as drug addiction, prostitution, violence, and kind of these like bureaucratic indifferences that all kind of pose threats to these kids. But at the heart of it, these kids prefer this harsh life rather than going back to their families. Um, we have the main character of this movie, King, played by Dermot Mulroney, who is kind of the main leader of this group of runaways. He has a buddy named Little J, played by Balthazar Getty. He has a friend named Greg, played by Sean Astin. They also have a couple of little like dubious rascal friends. There's Brenda, played by Ricki Lake.
Go, Ricki.
There,
Go, Ricki.
go Ricki. And there is a character named Crash, played by
James Ledros.
yeah, James Ledros or Legros. We also have appearances by Alyssa Milano and David Arquette, who kind of also play runaways, but are, I guess, more like sex workers.
Yeah, Christian Slater.
Christian Slater as a social worker. We have a Baldwin brother as a cop.
Kyle
And
MacLachlan, Twin
Kyle
Peaks Sex and the City fame.
Yes, as a drug dealer. And then of course we have Laura Flynn Boyle as the kind of lust or romantic object. Her name is Heather. She joins the group as a runaway from the East Coast, and quickly becomes smitten with King. And by the end of the movie kind of serves as this little bit of like a mother figure for the rest of the group as they're trying to get it together. And last but not least, we have Will Smith playing a character named Manny, an amputee. And that's what I meant when I had said, I don't know what I was going to expect watching this movie, but Will Smith as an amputee was not it. I was very surprised by that. And I don't want that to sound offensive, but when he came on screen, and I watched the trailer and everything, but like when he came on screen, I was like, oh, wow. Okay. That's a really, really interesting. And unfortunately, kind of like in Jennifer Lopez early years, it's a small role. You know, we're gonna work our way up to Will Smith's starring as like main character energy pretty soon. But for this first film, his role's pretty small.
Yeah, and it's interesting, I think, just off the top of like having overlooked like his films, that jump for him happens a lot sooner than for JLo.
Yes, agreed.
But yeah, I was kind of thrown back. I was not expecting him to be as homeless looking as he was,
Yeah,
and an amputee on top of that. I was like,
yeah.
wow, that's an interesting flip. And at this time, this is 1992. At this time, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is two seasons in, so
Hmm.
it's not like um, this is when two just off the cast and like seeing all these people be like, damn, this person's in this movie and blah blah blah, and seeing like Alyssa Milano and Will and David and all these people, you're like, damn, this seems like one of those movies that a lot of like child actors or, sweet faced kids in Hollywood, was like, ooh, I gotta do this movie so that they can take me seriously and that they can see I have range or I can play like the sex worker or the drug dealer, which for some of them felt a little out of place. Like it was like, yeah,
Yeah,
nice try, but but for Will, I
yeah,
actually was like impressed. I was like, damn, he's actually like acting already, like off top.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas like Ricki Lake, I was like, ooh, Alyssa Milano,
yeah.
Hal
And I think
MacLachlan as a drug dealer. What?
well, I
Why?
liked him. I liked him as his role in Ted. I thought that he was like, because he like pretends to be this like big brother figure, but he's like a total fucking asshole and causes, demise to Sean Astin's character. But
Yeah.
like, I kind of liked the kookiness of it. I thought it was a nice turn from Twin Peaks. But I think Alyssa Milano originally auditioned for the role of Heather, but because she was like
Yeah.
a child actress, they didn't want her. They gave her kind of just like a little bit of a different role. They wanted someone more like fresh and new.
Yeah. I Kyle MacLachlan, I don't know, because he's so like East Coast pretty boy, like with his like
Yeah.
jawline and his chin.
Hmm.
So it's like hard.
The bread hair.
Yeah, it's hard to like unpretty him. And so like, yeah, he could be this jerky like drug dealer, sure, but I don't see him as like a jerky drug dealer who lives in like a drug den. I see him as like the
Mm.
rich drug dealer who obviously because he's
Mm.
white, nobody realizes he's a drug dealer. He's like probably still preppy and, lives in a nice house or something like that.
Probably owns a couple of nightclubs.
Yeah, or like, has like a Porsche, like, sports cars and whatnot,
Yeah.
has a,
Yeah.
ties his sweater around his shoulders. But like to see him, like, also the fact that he's not just a drug dealer, but he was a drug user as well. It in contrast to how Sean Astin's character was as a drug user, it's like it didn't make sense to me. Like the math wasn't mathing, it wasn't adding up because it's like Sean Astin, is like out here bad on the drugs.
Hmm.
And you're
Hmm.
dealing to him, but you're also trying to get him to do heroin, I believe. And you're
Yeah.
doing it in front of him. And you're fine. I
Hmm.
don't I don't understand. I mean, it happens. There are people who are functioning drug addicts, but I just didn't buy good-looking, strong-jawed Kyle MacLachlan as that drug dealer.
Yeah. No, actually, now that you say it, it probably could have worked better if he was like the rich, preppy, like drug sugar daddy to everyone, but was like, you can come in my house, but you can't stay here because it's nice and you
Yes.
guys are like homeless,
Right.
So,
Yes, exactly. So, but yeah, so the trailer, what do you think of the trailer?
pretty straightforward trailer. And it really kind of goes over the meaning of this movie, where the day takes you, because growing up and living on the streets, they don't really have necessarily an agenda. Their day might consist of asking for money, doing drugs, hopping trains. And again, I
Stealing
don't want
radios.
stealing beer or like, mouthwash or basic necessities. And again, I don't want that to sound like insensitive, but I think it was, this commentary on like you just go wherever the day takes you. And it's
Yeah.
just this like free roaming lifestyle. And it has a little bit like I feel like the trailer has a mix of like emotional tug and then a little bit of humor, but kind of overlaid with like a dark tone.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those trailers that speaks to me, and this movie in general speaks to me as like a TV movie or like an after school special, like cautionary teen tale. Like, your life might be bad, but living on the streets is worse. Like, you never know what's gonna happen, and that kind of stuff. Um, and I wrote in my notes that, like, I know we reminisce on, the 90s and the 2000s with, like, these neon tinted glasses, but sometimes, like, we forget about the grittiness of, like,
Mm-hmm.
these eras and, like, the
Mm-hmm.
bad stuff that was happening and the struggles and stuff like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it was tough in the 90s. Like, there was lots of crime and all kinds of stuff, new drugs, new issues, to worry about. And so I think movies like this, as not cheesy, but as after school special kind of as this is, like, are kind of important because we love movies that encapsulate an era that glamorizes that era. Like Clueless. I love Clueless. But, you know, while Cher was, getting robbed and in Beverly Hills, like there are
Yeah.
kids in LA on the streets, like in this movie, still probably at that time, so
Mm-hmm.
that kind of underground look of like, you know what, yeah, things weren't always good vibrations.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And one thing that Roger Ebert in his review that I forgot to mention said that this film really reminded him of this documentary that was released in 1985 and was Oscar nominated, called Streetwise, and it was based off of the like a same premise of teens in the Pacific Northwest, but more specifically in Seattle, who were homeless and resulting in sex work and partying and drug addiction. But that was a true documentary, no actors or actresses.
Yeah.
They have since done like Where Are They Nows and stuff. And then they also, that documentary also really had more of a focus on like the social work aspect and how the system, like how kids are so easily like slipping, unfortunately, in and out of the system of foster care and youth programs and things like that. So I didn't watch the whole documentary, but I actually watched, I don't know, like skipped around to little bits and parts. I watched the trailer of it, and I can absolutely see where he's coming from of how this movie was kind of modeled after that. And there was nothing, funny or really humorous in, at least from what I saw in Streetwise. Like it was really sad. There were kids that were 13, 14 that were having sex for money with like 50, 60, 70-year olds. And it was like, oof.
Yeah.
That was a real tough pill to swallow, but this I can see where parallels from this movie come from. I also saw a lot of similarities between this and Requiem for a Dream, but Requiem for a
Yeah.
Dream obviously comes out much later, but same kind of premise of like young, good-looking kids coming from like fairly decent backgrounds and families, but like turning to the streets instead and forming their own family, and then sex working and drug selling and gun violence and arrests and stuff. So,
Yeah, I to go off of that, that's like probably one of my critiques about this movie is that maybe if it was shown like Heather's the newbie of the group that
mm-hmm,
kind of makes her way into this sort of street family. And if
mm-hmm,
we got to follow Heather's situation from leaving, like why she left, I feel like that would give a lot of context. Like we get moments of context, like with little Jay when he's with that older guy and he's
mm-hmm,
talking to him about his sexual abuse. And then with King trying to mentor Lil J and like Greg, and trying to tell them, look, there are things you don't want to have to do, like, and I want you guys to make better decisions and to do better and stuff. And I've seen stuff, and I feel like to see where some of, and then Greg goes home at one point, and he seems like he came from a well-off family. He seems like his dad is like kind of how I wanted Kyle MacLachlan's character to kind of come off, like
Yeah.
um very business and well off, ritzy, upper crust. And he has a stepmom, but so we get a glimpse into like where he came from, but to really understand like why they would rather live on the street than go back to those homes or those situations. And obviously with Lil J and Heather, like sexual abuse, obviously that's probably one of the most understandable reasons why you're just like, absolutely not. I'd rather be out here than to be continuously sexually abused. But I feel like that would have added another layer versus like initially going into the movie, you kind of meet King first, and then you see him kind of get back with his group. I think he gets out of jail or something.
Yeah, it starts with him getting out of jail, and the movie is, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but the movie is also told in this like back and forth style
Oh
where
yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah.
doing these like journalistic interviews, or he's like with a social worker, but he's being paid like $10 a session basically to share about what his life is like living on the streets. And he's like very cautious with how much information he gives away. Obviously, he doesn't want to like rat anyone out.
Yeah. It's
Um,
like his
but
probation or something, like a part of his probation
right,
probably.
right. And so it is told in this way where he's narrating the story almost
Yeah.
as it happens. So yeah, it starts when he first gets out of jail.
But yeah, so we get to see him join back with this group, but we don't, in my eyes, like kind of like Lil Raj said, you see this cast and you're like, oh, this is like the who's who of like young 90s actors kind of, or like young 90s actors trying to make a name for themselves. And so
Hmm.
you go in kind of expecting like this Brat Pack sort of like mall rats kind of movie of just tomfoolery and whatnot. And so for it to
Hmm.
be as serious of a topic as it is, for it to initially think that and then be like, okay, so I'm gonna watch a bunch of um good looking Hollywood kids pretend to be homeless and maybe dick around the whole movie, like going into
Hmm.
that and then seeing how serious it was, like was kind of like weird. So I feel like some context to like them having ran away and stuff. Like at first I thought they were just like grunge kids hanging out on the streets, like,
I
yeah.
thought so too, but that they would like go home at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
particularly with Sean Astin's character, Greg, like it's clear that he comes from a wealthy family and he graduated high school. There's like a picture of him with his diploma. He wears his Letterman jacket. It's all like, tattered and torn, but we don't know what the context is there of like why he went away. It sounds like obviously there was a divorce. Maybe that was really unsettling for him. Um, but when the scene he like kind of breaks into his house and goes into his childhood bedroom, he's probably looking for money.
Hmm.
He's looking to buy drugs from Ted. And then his stepmom and dad call the cops on him because he had previously broken into the house before, stole money to sell, stole items to sell for money. Um, but when I first saw that, I was like, oh, he's just like a rich, spoiled kid who just doesn't want to like take the opportunities that are given to him. And he's like going out
Yeah.
of his way to choose this life on the street. And in that way, I felt like it was a little romanticized because I think a lot of kids, especially suburban kids growing up, no matter how great your life is, there's a moment in your adolescent where you kind of daydream about what it would be like if you ran away or what it would be like if you were impoverished or living on the street or something. Like, I mean, I don't know about you. I know I used to do that all the time.
I don't think I did. Because
Okay,
I mean,
never mind.
I am a suburban kid, but I think being African American, it's like we're not far removed from that. So like I have been in hoods of sorts, and
Hmm.
as a suburban black kid, I feel very uppity sometimes where I'm like, ooh, I don't feel safe. But but like obviously I'm there with family or something, so by proxy like I probably am fine, but like it's not my environment. And so you see those things and you're like, or driving through even parts of like Oakland, and you're like, ooh, like we're not
Hmm.
gonna stay here, right? Like so
Hmm.
I don't know, I never really desired for that necessarily.
That's a fair thing, and I appreciate you coming with that perspective as well. Maybe it's because I also got like so into that punk culture, and I was like SLC Punk was one of my all-time favorite movies, and that was Matthew Lillard and oh fuck, I forget the other actor's name, but it they are growing up in Salt Lake City in this like punk scene, and they have like nice situated familial backgrounds, but they're like, fuck you, mom and dad,
Yeah.
anarchy all the way, choosing that street life. So maybe there was a bit of like romanticizing on
No,
my
I mean,
part.
I think I get what you're saying. I think it's different though, like in that sense of like that can be a very kind of liberating thing maybe for some kids where it's like I'm gonna make it on my own, and I'm gonna like live with my friends and we're gonna figure it out, and I'd rather
Yes,
like I
yes.
get that part of it kind of, but like I feel as though maybe for black people like a lot of it is trying to get away from poverty and like the ghetto and do better. And so being uh able to benefit from my parents' hard work of being able to live in a suburb, I don't necessarily see value in going back to that, but I do see like value in like knowing where you came from in many ways. Like just
Okay, yeah.
like maybe it's not the ghetto or the hood, but just knowing that, also as an enslaved people, like we didn't always have certain things. So like being on the uprise versus like yeah, I don't know. But
No, 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 no. That
that's a
actually,
interesting interesting social difference maybe.
yeah. No, no, everything you said actually makes total perfect sense, and now I feel like an asshole for bringing it up.
It's weird because I think it's like a weird privilege that to like romanticize that.
It is. It's absolutely something of privilege that I am acknowledging right now and like sitting with this uncomfortable
Yeah.
feeling of
I never thought of
knowing that,
that. So
yeah,
deep,
well,
Will.
and
So deep.
damn, okay, okay, where the day takes you, maybe there's like a little bit something else in there, but I don't know. Well, thinking about Will Smith in particular, his role was small, but how do you think it stood out against some of the other like main characters of the story?
Well, first of all, he's like the only person of color in this group.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
um, and
Sure
he
was.
seems older. Like
Yes,
that.
I agreed. I almost thought he was like a war veteran.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
the amputee part really, I
Yeah.
feel like, because like how else do you, I mean, there's plenty of ways to lose limbs, but
Yes.
typically at that time, most like homeless amputees were probably war veterans who
Yeah.
lost a limb in
Yeah.
like Vietnam or something like that. So I think unfortunately there's like a disservice done to his character in part because it's kind of inconsequential, like he's just there, but at the same time like to me like he probably has the more interesting backstory as to being on the streets than any of them.
I would
And
have loved to have learned how he like met that group, how he works with that group because that group also lives in this like little dugout tunnel underneath one of the freeways in Hollywood. So I don't know if it's like wheelchair accessible for him to go down and sleep there at night.
Probably
Um,
not.
I'm guessing probably not. So he's probably sleeping somewhere else. But regardless, I would have liked to have known like how he met up with that group, how they, what else do they do to spend time? Like there are a couple of scenes that they were out. I think it was like on Hollywood Boulevard with like the Star Walk.
Hmm.
That they were asking probably most likely tourists and stuff for pocket change, and they were all unsuccessful except for Will Smith.
Yeah.
Um, and
Which
so
people probably thought he was a war veteran.
probably.
I mean, and that's the other thing. Like I said, like you see this group of relatively good-looking kids who just
Yeah.
look a little grungy,
A little
and so
dirty.
imagine walking down Hollywood Boulevard and you have like these grungy-looking white kids, like, "Hey, can you spare $1?" And you're like, "Fuck off!" Like, go skate somewhere. Like, so just
Yes.
like I said, he looked the most authentic to me. So
Yeah.
it's no wonder he got the money out of everybody.
Yeah.
Like,
Agreed.
oh yeah, of course, dude. Like, man, I can't imagine. And then there's a scene where Crash is trying to get information out of him about where King is because they have this beef. And
Hmm.
I also read a review in the Los Angeles Times that pointed out that it would have been interesting to make the tension between Crash and King kind of the central story of sorts and
Hmm.
have that like play out like more throughout the movie.
I think Crasher was part of the group. He was the guy with the longer hair. I think King's biggest beef was with that guy Tommy.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm mixing up people, I guess. Yes, yes, you're
That's
right.
okay. That's
Tommy
okay.
Ray.
But Crasher or Crash was kind of a douche anyways. Like he was kind of hooking up with
Ricki
Brenda,
Lake,
Ricki Lake's
yeah.
character, but he was kind of like a drifter in and out of the group. I think in the heart of it, you look at the group and it's King, Lil J, and Greg,
Greg,
and
yeah.
then Heather and Brenda as like the ladies of the group, and then we have like side friends like Manny and Crasher and Kimmy and Rob, and then their drug dealer Ted.
Yeah,
So it's
cuz
like they all know each other, but
yeah.
yeah,
Cause like Brenda and Crasher, they look like they go home somewhere, or like
yeah,
they at least go somewhere. And even like Alyssa Milano and David Arquette's character, they are holed up in like a really cheap, seedy hotel, but they're not
yeah.
like necessarily on the street.
It's a roof over their head, it's a bed, it's a shower.
Yeah, but my bad. So yeah, Tommy Ray, if that tension like sort of played out more throughout the movie versus how it played out. Like I don't know. Like I feel like the reason they were mad at each other too was like very cheap. But that's just me.
Yeah, it had to do with like a woman, right?
I'm pretty sure
Like
because I
King's
think
ex-girlfriend or something.
yes, I think his ex-girlfriend, I think Tommy Ray was pimping out his ex-girlfriend or something.
Yeah.
Or something, yeah,
It was
something
a
of
little
that matter.
convoluted. Yeah. So to have that maybe more commentary about like life on the streets, but like turf war. I wouldn't necessarily call this gang violence, but
No,
like,
yeah.
you know, transient turf war, maybe.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
yeah, I don't know. It's like what was the point of that part of the story if it wasn't a
Well, I mean,
commentary
I
on
think
something, you know?
right. I mean, so Tommy eventually finds where King and the crew are being held up, and he he finds them in their sleeping arrangements. And Lil J had found a gun and had met up with the older gentleman to get some money to buy the bullets for that gun to kind of protect himself and that crew. He ends up shooting Tommy and they have to flee the scene. So I think that main purpose was just to kind of like drive the plot, which would eventually lead to the climax of the story.
Yeah, I'm trying to find where maybe I read that in someone else's like review because I read like YouTube comments on the trailer and IMDb
Mm, mm-hmm,
comments,
mm-hmm.
but I thought that was a good point to bring up. But
Yeah. Yeah, no, I wish it was a little bit more spelt out. Um, and it would make sense as to like why he has so much beef with that group.
yeah, but there are like kind of there are moments that you feel for these characters and
Mm-hmm.
uh I don't know, sympathize. For me, it was more so not so much like these characters, but like thinking about like kids this really occurs to.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
in that way, I think it's effective. But like, you know, when Heather and King post scuffle shooting with little J and I keep wanting to
Tommy.
call him Crasher, Tommy Ray. And you know, they're trying to hide out from the cops and stuff, so they go to the beach. And so
Mm-hmm.
Heather tries to get money, and so she had some money left over from I guess leaving home, and so she lies. And she's like, "Well, I got the money, so I get to choose what we do with it." And so she wants to get a hotel room and things like that where it's like, man, it's the small luxuries that make a difference, you know, in that situation where she's excited to shower and to like have a bed and stuff and things we take for granted. Um,
See, I felt oppositely about that part because it was it was clear that like Heather and King had a little crushy crush on each other,
yeah.
and there's like a mattress in their little underpass cave under the Hollywood freeway, and he goes, "Oh, do you want to like?" They kind of start to kiss. And then she goes, okay, I don't really want to do anything else. And he's cool. He's like, that's fine. You want my sleeping bag? He goes, 98.6 over here, baby. You don't have to worry about me. Like, I don't get cold. It's fine. And so, but then it wasn't until they like go to the hotel. She's like, she takes a shower, poist coist uh the two post up, they finally make love. That I was like, oh, there's always been a little bougie in Heather. Like she waited until she was clean and had a warm spot and strike me down, but I said that she's like a glamping transient. Like she wants that lifestyle, but she like wants to do it in comfort. And that
well,
kind of like annoyed me a little bit.
well, I mean, I think because it's new to her, she hasn't been on the streets long. So, I mean, I'm here
Yes,
for it because in my
yes.
mind, and I don't know if this is too crass, because this is kind of a serious subject matter, but this movie is so like 90s, I can't help. But I had in my mind like a would you rather, but like not a would you rather, but like I'm sorry, but I am not fucking anybody under an underpass on a mattress just outside. I'm sorry. I don't care how like down and out I've been, has stayed, like it's not happening. So I'm with her on like I want some, but we about to get this hotel room and I'm a shower and you're gonna shower and you're gonna brush your teeth and like I don't, and that's probably again a point of privilege of having never been on the street and stuff. But I will commend them that I was like, that must be some real love, ride or die type things because I don't know if I could be with some, like, I would love someone enough to just be on the streets with them. Like, I'm like, I don't know, I'm about to flip a burger, something like to get up and out somewhere. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you're right. This movie is serious. Like, and and going back to like Will Smith's role, I felt like this movie is very serious in nature. Will plays kind of the most comedic role out of everybody. He has some of the funniest lines. He was like, I heard your grandma was spit shining some dick down the street when like Tommy
Yes.
Ray comes to go get him. Like, he's got some good lines. He's popping wheelies on his wheelchair. Like, he's bringing some of the fun. And maybe that's just because it's Will Smith. He's a bit of a goofball on Fresh Prince. He's like bringing some of that energy into it.
Yeah.
But I felt like his character was there to like break the light or bring the light to some of these like long days on the street.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. And I mean, they do some like kind of, I guess, fun things like train hopping, as you mentioned earlier, which I was
Will
like,
Smith can't do that though. So they're like, sorry, Manny. We'll see ya.
yeah. But I also was like, why don't they just take like train hop? Because eventually they are like, we gotta leave. Like, we should just get out of here. Like, Crasher is one of them. Like,
Yeah.
look, I'm going to Texas. You guys should come if you want. Like, this, there's just too much going on here and we can't really
Hmm.
escape it. And I was curious, like, why they couldn't just train hop there, since that was a pastime of theirs. Like, and that's a conventional transient way of getting around, was to like stow away on a train,
Right.
and go wherever, hop off, whatever. The quintessential bandana on a stick knapsack. Uh, I'm out of here, Paul. Like, moment.
Yep.
And
Yep. Yep.
but that moment too, when they decide to leave, and there's a moment too where King is like, I don't know, maybe I'll get a job and like straighten out and all this stuff. And like, part of me, this is why I feel like there needed to be more context, because part of me was like, why can't any of these able-bodied uh teenagers get a job? Like, there has to be
Hmm.
like a program. And that's why, like, the context is important to understand why this is their circumstance, and or a choice for some of them. Like, Lil J seems like the
Right.
youngest one, so obviously he probably couldn't work. But like,
Hmm.
King, what was wrong with him? Why couldn't he get a job like doing construction, something? I don't know.
Maybe he just feels like a single mom who works two jobs who loves her kids.
His job is to
Like,
keep an eye on Greg and Lil J, and he can't
yeah.
he
Yeah.
can't be
He
distracted.
doesn't want to, because when he comes out of jail, in the beginning of the movie, I don't think Greg was always addicted to drugs. And he was, noticing that Greg was like tweaking out, and he was like, that's new. Like, when did that happen? And then Lil J had a gun, or it was like an empty, like, shell of a gun, basically.
Yeah.
And he was just like, dude, what the fuck? Like, no gun violence.
Yeah,
So
like things
he,
went
like,
astray while he was in jail.
yes. Yeah.
He was like, I leave you for however long, and now they're doing this shit. Why? And then his
Hmm.
girlfriend's gone. And he's like,
Hmm.
what the hell? Anybody seen her? Where is she?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I don't, yeah. And I feel like that's just, again, that, like, when you talk about these like social issues, like, it's important to try to understand and empathize with like where these, and we're dealing with rampant homelessness right now, especially
Yep.
post COVID. And in the Bay Area, you can easily drive anywhere and see encampments off the freeway, under
Hmm.
overpasses, on turnouts for the freeway. San Francisco, it's everywhere too. And before, I think when you were younger in the 90s, you just thought homeless people typically were drug addicts. But as I've grown up, you learn that that's not always the case. And two,
Hmm.
you also learn that some people actually prefer that, kind of like people who are so used to being in jail, like they can't function in normal society anymore because they're
Hmm.
just so used to that. So that's very much the same for homelessness. Sometimes it's just like, that's the life that they've become accustomed to, sadly. And I just wish we had more resources for them that would make it safer in a lot of ways and help them. But that's a whole nother issue. But
Well, and no, you have a really good point because it wasn't until the ending credits of this movie that I like realized, oh, this is the commentary that the director is trying to make. So this was 1992 statistics, and who knows if this was true, but when the movie ends, this like flash on the screen says every 26 seconds a child runs away from home, and then it pans out into kind of like a hotline number and like a resource home, group home, organization that people can reach out to if they want to. And that really reminded me of Border Town a little bit. That
oh,
like the
yeah, yeah.
purpose of watching Border Town was to hear about the injustices that were happening to these women, these hardworking women who were being kidnapped, raped, and murdered and discarded, and no one was doing anything about it. And it's not to say that once that statistic and number flashed on the screen, I was like, oh, that's the purpose of this movie.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't that like they're trying to shed light on the children who run away for any reason, and to provide resources for minors and now adults who are living on the street who might just prefer that life, but to at least have some kind of, you know, job security or housing security or some kind of funding. And yeah, I don't know. I just felt like it was a little like, it just reminded me of Border Town.
Yeah, you know what this reminds me of too? I don't know if you ever saw the True Life episode of like runaways and stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there was a young lady who had ran away, and she notoriously didn't have like her ID and stuff, and like didn't want it, and her family was trying to get in contact with her, and she like wanted no dice at all. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that did a better job of like trying to understand that choice and situation and like those circumstances. But you know, this is a starting point probably. Again, this was like one of a few things that tried to touch on this in the 90s, and you can't always do it right. So, you
Right.
know, but I think at least it sparked a good discussion. I mean,
Yeah.
it is not the deepest, most profound take on homelessness, but it's definitely an interesting point of view and attempt at it. And I, on that note, would love to see someone try to do something similar on this topic again. I think, especially now, like I
Yeah.
said, it is very prevalent right now. I do think but I do think the homeless situation now is very diverse for very different reasons. So I don't think the majority of homelessness right now is like this situation, but I'm sure these things still exist. And I feel like stuff like this now would more so lend itself to human trafficking, you know, and like prostitution and stuff. I've seen things on that, like girls who run away from home or get kidnapped and then get sucked into and put on the street. Um, but yeah, I would love to see something like this current day and see how a 2022 lens could maybe uplift this subject matter to a more palatable quality. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it would be great to see a modern adaptation of this movie. I think it could hold its own in 2022. However, I think that it definitely would be better served with a more diverse cast. Or
Yes.
hell, just go back to more of like a documentary route, not have actors play because that lowers our a suspension of disbelief, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So to maybe have a true kind of documentary like Streetwise, but in modern times, and even in Los Angeles, one of the ones that I it's not it's not necessarily related to this, but it's the documentary about the Cecil Hotel, which is
Yeah.
infamously located in Skid Row. But then there is a whole episode and part of this, of that documentary that talks about Skid Row, and
Which
talks
blew
about
my
how
mind.
this hotel,
I thought Skid
yeah,
Row was like an alley in LA, and it's like a whole like couple of city blocks.
neighborhood.
Yes, it's like
Yeah, it's like the
mind blowing.
Tenderloin. It's big.
It is mind blowing to realize how large it is, and like it's just like,
Yeah,
it is what it is. Like what? But yeah,
yeah, yeah. And we get those kinds of things on television shows. We get, anything that we'll see on like A&E or investigative discovery. We've tracked those kinds of stories and documentaries before, but like a whole movie I think would be really great. And again, to have more of a, how is it different between, white homeless and, people of color, war vets, women,
LGBTQ I
trans,
think would be a
LGBT. That's what I was
yeah.
just about to say. Yeah.
That's
Like
I think
it
that's
would be
probably
really
like the
cool.
crux of now kids running away
Yes.
into the
Yeah.
streets is like being disowned by your family for your sexuality and or
Yep.
your gender and stuff. So yeah, um, that would be an interesting series. I think really, I don't think a movie
Yeah.
would do this justice. Like you need
Yeah. A
different
series.
episodes.
Yes. And it wouldn't be fun to watch. It
No,
would be so sad, but
yeah.
important nonetheless.
And I think too, from this, like you said, like you have the stats and the 800 number at the end. But we live in a time of social justice warriors, and I'm notorious for signing like a petition online or
Hmm.
donating here
Hmm.
and there, but not very actively participating in person in things. And I think with
Hmm.
documentaries or movies like this with commentary on subjects like this, it would be helpful, at least for people like me, because like I watch stuff like this and it affects me. Like, I joked about that Melissa Etheridge, like the songs, but like those songs are fucking depressing. Like, it kind of puts
I
you there.
know.
Like, you're like, damn, I feel down and out too. Like, and anyways, you from the comfort of your home, you watch these things. You're like, oh man, that's so terrible, and like somebody's got to do something about this. But it also for me sometimes it's like, what do I do? Like, you may give someone money here and there when you see them. Sometimes you may be like, I don't know. I saw someone tweet actually that like, you know, two, we judge people who are drug users and on the street and like, oh, I don't want to give anybody drugs and they're gonna go buy crack with it. Like, or some people are
Hmm.
adamant, like, I won't just give money. I'll like maybe buy someone food or ask them if they like
Hmm.
need or donate clothes or something. But like someone was like, well, I mean, hell, they live on the street. You're high at home on your couch. You don't think they need to get high too? And I was like, that's kind of a good point. Like, there are people getting high in the comforts of their home doing all kinds of stuff. And why can't people who live on the street do that to escape their circumstance? It's worse than yours, probably. Well, you can't compare people's circumstances, but it's a bad circumstance as well. So it is kind of
Hmm.
justifiable. But
Hmm.
but yeah, some kind of way to actually be like, hey, this is what you can do. These are places, organizations, blah, blah, blah. Like, sometimes we need that spoon fed to us because sometimes it's like, oh, I want to do
Yeah.
something, but I don't know what. And it's like, hey, here
Yeah.
you go. This is what you go do. Um, but yeah, I would prefer something like that over like well, I mean, the 1-800 number I'm sure is for, is it for people who need help? Because how would
Yeah.
they have seen that? That's another insensitive point. But yeah.
Yes. You
So,
can't imagine someone who's like, I want to, this movie is about me and my lifestyle, but I can't go to the movie theater to go watch it.
I did see some comments on YouTube about people who were like, "Oh, I used to live on the streets, and this is pretty accurate to how it was back then, and things like that." And I was like, take those things with a grain of salt on the internet. You're like, really? But maybe okay if you say so. You relate more than I do, so I'm gonna take that. And okay, maybe this held up in 1992.
Yeah.
Um, I feel weird asking if there's like a movie snack and cocktail spread for this.
Well, to answer your question for me, yes, but it's just what I ate while I was watching it. But then I noticed that there were like some similar things that they were eating in the movie as well. So I did not plan it. My snack and cocktail would be it would be a Miller's High Life and a slice of pizza.
Oh my god, you stole mine.
Really?
Well, Ricki Lake made that pizza look bomb as hell. I'm sorry.
She
Like,
did. Oh yeah.
it made me want to
any
go to
90s
Berkeley.
pizza. Yeah,
Like,
get like a big slice. Yeah. Any 90s pizza slice, whether it was cartoon or real, just looked fucking out of this world. So
yes.
good. And then there's this scene where little Jay's in like a liquor store and he's stealing and he like
Yes.
drops this big thing of Miller's High Life. He's like, fuck, and like runs.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean that makes that easy. Do you have a would you rather that we didn't
The one it was about like, would you rather sleep on the beach or sleep on the mattress? But I don't know, maybe that's insensitive.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know which one, and I don't know if that's insensitive. I have jumped on a mattress, like an abandoned mattress. That
Ooh,
was fun.
okay.
um, I don't know. I will say that there is a sense of security in where they were sleeping because there were a few of
It was
them, and it's
covered.
yeah,
Yeah.
you don't want to get wet or rained out, and so that part of that would make that enticing. Sleeping on the beach, even like for unless I'm camping, I feel like that just mm, I
Yeah.
feel like that's a scary thing. Like there's that show White Lotus, and one of the
Yeah.
brother kept getting kicked out of the hotel room because his sister's like, "Yeah, we don't want to share the pull out with you or whatever," and
Hmm.
so he just started sleeping on the beach, and that was cool because he was in Hawaii and he was seeing these awesome ass
Oh,
sunsets. Which, I
yeah, of
mean, in
course.
California you could too, but I also feel like in California they patrol that kind. I feel like most beaches they patrol that kind of stuff, and you might get
Hmm.
kicked out before you
Yeah.
can even. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just go back to the hole and convene with your peeps, and
Yeah.
how was your day? Where did the day take you today?
Where did maybe that's how I should ask. We should start our show this season. Where has the day taken you?
I thought you were gonna say your class.
Oh, yeah. Where,
That's a
well,
good
maybe,
writing prompt for the beginning of class. All right, everybody, this
where
is
has the
today's.
day taken you? They'll
uh,
be like, I don't know. School? Like, that's probably their one answer. I hate
TikTok.
it here.
um, hey, maybe you need to show this movie in your class. This is like one of, and this is why I was like, this is very TV after school special because I feel like we watched Pay It Forward in Leadership or like
Mm-hmm.
movies like Dangerous Minds with Michelle
Mm-hmm.
Pfeiffer, which is infamous for Coolio's song. But these movies that you watch in class that are supposed to be like these kind of cautionary tales about like stuff and like life and choices and whatnot. And I think this actually, if they went that route with this movie, that's what they should have did. They should have donated a bunch of VHSs to some schools and be like, hey, check out this movie. Maybe you'll want to show it at an assembly or something. And that's what they should have done because I feel like yes, I think this movie could be better in terms of how serious the subject matter is, but I think this would have hit a 16, 15-year-old me differently in that setting of like, damn, I don't want that to be like so. Yeah. So I think overall this role is a pretty humble beginning for Will, and it'll be interesting to see his growth from this really small part to, you know, some of these huge ass movies he was able to do. But off top, he's like, I know he's like 2 years into Fresh Prince, and I know that it took him a while to kind of adjust to acting, but he is just naturally gifted. And
He's good. Yeah.
yeah, this wasn't like an awkward kind of like, oh, it's that rapper kid kind of movie. Like, if I didn't know that he was like a rapper, I would have been like, oh, look at that dude acting. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm so excited for, I mean, I don't know every single Will Smith movie, especially maybe the early ones, but once we start to get to the like bigger blockbuster ones, I've seen pretty much all of those.
Yeah.
And I can't say that for Jennifer Lopez. So I watched a lot of those things first time for our show. So I'm really excited to see someone that has just like always been so charismatic. Not to say Jennifer hasn't, but just I feel like Will is someone when
He's
you
a
think of
superstar in like the
he's a
biggest
superstar.
way you can think of. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I do want to say too that Laura Flynn Boyle will be in Men in Black. So we get a little 6 degrees already started here. I'm curious to see if any of these other actors might intertwine somehow with him again, because there's some pretty biggish names and, you know, familiar faces. But yeah, okay, we can wrap. Rippity.
All right.
Ricka wrap up.
Ricka wrap up. All right. Take us away, Bria.
Well, thank you for listening to this week's episode. I mean, this is our first go at Will Smith. It's very Nurses on the Line, Nurses in the Wild. And to the people who stuck with us from JLo, what's up? We appreciate you. And please come back for another episode. I feel like we've upgraded a bit from Great Value. But, so yeah, please come back for another episode of the Trader Joe's version of Inside the Actors Studio. We'll see how that works out for the rest of this season.
Hell yeah. And seriously, y'all, if you like us enough to stick around, take another deep dive down this IMDb rabbit hole with us as we discuss Will Smith in the 1993 drama that came out in May called Made in America.
And on that note, if you've got nothing better to do, go figure out a theme to watch a bunch of movies you've never seen.
I'm your host, Simone. Please subscribe to this blessed mess and leave us a like if y'all are into it.
And I'm your host, Bria, and it would be awesome for you to wipe off those buttery popcorn fingers and give us a review. Follow us at Roll Call Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and my favorite, Twitter. And that Twitter probably is going to stay very JLo heavy, just FYI. It's not as aesthetically important as Instagram. You know, the grid should look like a different season in TikTok.
Yeah.
But Twitter is just the Wild West, baby. Bang, bang.
Wicked wild, wicked wild.
And on that note, this has been another episode of
Roll Call and Cut. Wicked wild, wicked wild.
Oh!
Bam, 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 bam. We're going straight to the wild, wild west.
Already jumping ahead. And on that note, this has been another episode. Like SpongeBob.
Up, rock, bottom.